Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're going to really dig deep into something that could change your golf game completely. I'm talking about ground reaction forces. And I have to give you, the listener, a huge shout out because you sent in some fascinating research on this. I'm really excited to have our expert here today to break it all down, to help us really understand how these forces can unlock more power in our swings.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
So before we get into the specifics of the research, let's make sure we're all on the same page. Can you give us like a Physics 101 explanation of what ground reaction forces actually are?
Yeah, for sure. It really boils down to one of those fundamental laws of physics, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So, in simplest terms, when you push against the ground pushes back on you with the same amount of force. That's the ground reaction force.
Okay, I think I get that, but I have to admit, it's kind of hard to see how that applies to, the complexity of a golf swing. It's not like I'm just stomping my feet out there on the course.
Right. It's definitely not that simple. But think about it. Every movement in the swing involves some kind of interaction with the ground. And the source you sent in, it really highlights how we can use these forces strategically.
Yeah, the source really dives into the sequence of the swing. It talks about this lateral movement first, then rotation, then vertical force, and it all ends with a braking action in that front foot. It's a lot to unpack.
Definitely. But each step in that sequence plays a crucial role in building and transferring energy. And that's where the ground reaction force comes in.
Okay, so let's break it down. Starting with that lateral movement, I always thought about that as like shifting my weight back to get more power. But it sounds like there's a bit more to it.
There is. It's not just about shifting your weight back. It's about creating this like preloaded spring. You're storing up energy that you can then release through the rest of the swing. If you skip that lateral move and go straight into rotation, you're missing out on a ton of potential power.
So it's like winding up before you unleash the force.
Exactly. You
Right.
got it.
Okay, so we've wound up with that lateral movement. We've got that spring loaded. What happens next?
Then comes the rotation, and this is where things get really interesting. As you rotate, you're pushing off the ground with your legs. And that push, particularly from that front leg, that's what creates an upward force. And that upward force is key. It helps transfer the energy from your body up into the club.
So it's not just about turning my shoulders. It's about using my legs to drive that upward force.
You got it. It's all connected.
This is making me rethink my entire swing.
And then we get to that last part of the sequence, that braking action with the front foot. That's where a lot of golfers, they tend to struggle.
Oh, tell me about it. I've fought to keep that front leg straight my whole golfing life.
And, the source suggests that this crumpled knee we see sometimes, it might not actually be about the knee itself. It might be a sign that you're not using those ground reaction forces effectively in your legs.
Wow, so it's not just about flexibility or strength. It's about how I'm interacting with the ground.
Exactly. If you're not pushing off the ground the right way, your body might try to compensate. And that could lead to that knee buckle.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But can you help me understand that braking action a little better? I mean, it's not just about stopping the swing, is it?
No, it's so much more than that. It's about controlling that upward force we were talking about and making sure all that energy you've built up, it gets channeled directly into the ball.
So it's like taking all that power from the ground and focusing it on that one point of impact.
Exactly. You're directing it instead of letting it dissipate.
This is amazing stuff, but I have to ask, how do we actually learn to feel these forces? I mean, they're invisible, right?
Well, they might be invisible, but you can definitely feel them. And that's where the balance board exercises come in.
The source talked about those, right?
Yes, the balance board is a great tool for this. It gives you immediate feedback on how you're shifting your weight, how you're applying force.
So it's like a training ground for understanding these ground reaction forces.
Exactly. It helps you develop that awareness.
I have to say, I tried a balance board once, and it was way harder than it looks.
It definitely takes some practice, but it's worth it.
It makes you realize how much we take our connection to the ground for granted. We're so focused on what our arms and hands are doing, but we forget about the foundation of it all.
It's true. Our legs and feet, they're the unsung heroes of the golf swing.
I'm starting to see that now. This whole conversation is really making me realize that the golf swing is so much more than just mimicking positions.
Right. It's about understanding the forces at play.
It's like there's this whole other level of the swing that I never even considered.
It's a whole new way of thinking about it. And the beauty of it is it's all based on physics, not just some arbitrary technique.
It's like unlocking a secret code to the golf swing.
Exactly. And that code, it's all about harnessing those ground reaction forces.
This is incredible. I can't wait to dive deeper into the research and see how we can apply this to our swings. I'm starting to see the light here, but it still feels kind of abstract, you know?
Right.
Right? How do I actually feel these forces when I'm swinging?
That's where those balance board exercises from the source, those really come in handy. They can make those invisible forces, or those forces we've been talking about, make them a lot more real. You can feel them.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do
Okay.
we use a balance board to, like, train these forces?
Well, one of the exercises they describe in the source, it's pretty basic to start. You start on the left side of the board, and then you shift your weight to the right, and then you swing. Sounds pretty simple, right?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I can picture that, I guess.
But there's this one key detail they emphasize, and it really highlights how important those ground reaction forces are.
What is it?
You got to get pressure on that front foot before you start rotating, before any rotation happens. That's where a lot of golfers, myself included, that's where we tend to mess up.
Yeah.
We want to get that rotation going right.
All right.
We're so focused on the turn that we forget about that initial push, that push from the ground.
Oh, I see, I see. I can definitely see myself doing that. And I bet the balance board, it wouldn't let you get away with that, would it?
No way. If you try to rotate before you've really connected with the ground, that board's going to let you know. It'll either tip over or it'll spin out of control.
Wow, so it's like instant feedback right there.
Exactly. You know right away whether you're using that ground reaction force correctly.
Man, that's so much better than just watching a video or trying to copy someone's swing, you know? It makes you actually feel what's happening.
It does, and that's the key. You start to develop this whole new level of awareness in your swing. You're not just trying to get into the right position, you're understanding the forces that create that position, and you're learning how to use them.
Right, right. It's all about those forces. Now, you mentioned that a lot of golfers, we neglect that initial push from the ground. Are there other common swing flaws that, maybe we could trace back to these ground reaction forces? Like, are we messing them up in other ways?
Definitely, yeah. Think about the finish of your swing. Do you find yourself kind of like off balance or swaying?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I do.
That could be a sign that you're not decelerating effectively, or that you're not sequencing those forces in the right order.
Hmm. That's interesting. I've always struggled with that, with finishing in a balanced position,
Yeah.
but I never really thought about it in terms of these ground reaction forces.
Well, it's all connected. Remember that braking action we were talking about with the front foot?
Yeah.
That's so important for a nice, balanced finish. It lets you control all that power you've generated through those ground reaction forces, and it makes sure it all goes into the ball.
So it's not just about how much power you create, it's about how you control it.
Exactly. You got it.
This is really starting to click for me now.
And you know what's really cool about this whole approach?
What's that?
It's not just about hitting the ball farther, which, let's face it, is what everyone always focuses on.
Yeah, more distance.
But this is about improving your whole swing, the efficiency, the consistency, everything.
Yeah, right.
You're training your body to move in a way that's naturally powerful, and you can repeat it over and over.
Which, at the end of the day, that's what we all want, right?
Yeah.
We want to hit the ball farther, we want to hit it straighter, we want to do it consistently.
Exactly.
And it sounds like understanding these ground reaction forces, that could be the key.
I think it is. It's a real game changer. And, it just goes to show it's always good to look at things from a different perspective. Even something as familiar as the golf swing, you can still learn new things.
That's so true. The source you sent, it talks about the importance of actually feeling these forces as you swing. And it made me think of something I read years ago. It was a quote by Ben Hogan. He said, "The secret is in the dirt."
Hmm.
And you know what? It seems like he was onto something, even back then.
It's amazing, isn't it? Those who really excel at something, whether it's golf or, physics, they often have this intuitive understanding of the underlying principles. They might not be able to explain it in scientific terms, but they feel it and they use it.
That's so true. So how do we, as everyday golfers, how do we start to develop that same kind of intuition? Like, how do we get better at feeling these forces?
Well, besides practicing on a balance board, which I definitely recommend, it starts with just being more aware of how you're moving. When you walk, when you jump, when you throw something, how do your feet push against the ground? Can you feel it? The more we tune into those sensations, the better we'll be at using them in our golf swing.
I love that. It's not just about what we do on the course. It's about, like, having this deeper connection with our bodies,
Yeah,
how we move through the world.
exactly.
I think that's something we can all benefit from, no matter how good we are at golf.
Absolutely. And I think as you start paying attention to these forces, these ground reaction forces,
Yeah,
you'll be surprised how much more powerful, how much more efficient you can be. And not just in your golf swing, but in everything you do.
that's a great point.
Yeah.
It's like we've been given this hidden advantage, and all we have to do is learn to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we've been missing out on this secret weapon this whole time. And it's not just some, made up trick, it's actual science.
It is. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. The golf swing, it's really like a conversation between your body and the ground.
A conversation, huh? I like
Well,
that. And
yeah.
it sounds like most of us are just like mumbling our way through it. We don't really understand what we're saying.
That's a great way to put it. We're trying to force the conversation instead of listening to what the ground is telling us.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that. But this deep dive has been a real eye opener for me. I'm going to look at my swing in a whole new way now.
I think you'll be surprised at how much it changes things.
I can't wait to get back out on the course and try it all out. And maybe invest in a balance board too.
I think you'll find it's a worthwhile investment.
Well, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. I feel like I've learned so much.
It's been my pleasure. And a huge thank you to you, the listener, for sending in this awesome research. It sparked a conversation that I think we can all benefit from.
As we wrap up here, I want to leave everyone with one final thought. We've been talking about ground reaction forces in terms of the golf swing, but this concept, it goes way beyond golf.
Oh, absolutely. Think about any athletic movement, really. Running, jumping, throwing, anything. It all comes back to that connection with the ground.
It's true. Even just walking down the street, you're using these forces.
We're constantly interacting with the ground, whether we realize it or not.
It's amazing how we take something so fundamental for granted. We're so focused on what's happening up here, but we forget about the foundation that makes it all possible.
So here's a challenge for you, listener. As you go about your day-to-day, try to be more aware of that connection to the ground. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Notice how you push off with each step. It might seem like a small thing, but it can really change how you move and how you feel.
That's a great challenge. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful insights come from looking inward, not outward, from paying attention to the things we usually overlook.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe that newfound awareness will even lead to a better golf swing.
Now that's something we can all get behind. Thanks again for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of your understanding.